All right. It's time for the podcast. We're going to get into it super quick. I'm going to give it like 10, 15 seconds, let some people tune in. Okay, maybe slightly more than that. But today, guys, we're talking about not having time for strength and conditioning. Excuse for not hitting strength and conditioning session. And we're going to go. Okay, no, the stream seems to be working. Something kind of flashed up weird there, but we're going to go very, very soon here. We're talking about why not having time is a bullshit use for not hitting strength conditioning sessions. So, guys, we're going to, and if you're on Instagram, stick around. We're going to do some Q&A at the end. But now we're going to get going. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are talking about why I don't have time is not a good excuse to miss your strength and conditioning sessions. Now, this is something I hear a lot. I'll be in conversations with athletes. I talk to athletes every single day, and I hear athletes say something like, well, I don't have time to do strength and conditioning because, I'm balancing my sport, I'm balancing like school or work or whatever else it might be. So I just don't have time. I need to prioritize. I need to prioritize my skills so that I make sure that I hit all of my skill sessions, and I just don't have time to add that in. Now, this is something that I've heard a lot, and I want to break down why, if this is you, you're royally fucking up. And if this isn't you yet, make sure that it doesn't become you. So a lot of the time when people say this, plain and simple, you don't have a time problem, you have a priority problem. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people in the combat sports space, whether, boxing, MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, whatever, get stuck in a mentality that they feel like all they need to do ever is just do more skills, do more skills, do more skills. And on the surface, I understand it. I'm not sitting here saying that your skill work isn't important. I'm not sitting here saying that you shouldn't be training the skills a lot. So I understand it. But the problem with that is we have limitations on how much we can take in any given time and how quickly we can actually learn skills or how many skills we can learn. Right? So obviously training hard and training a lot and doing a lot of your skill work is very important. But if you're only ever just doing more skills, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day of just training your skills, you're not getting something out of every one of those, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. I guarantee it. Like one of the most common culprits of this is I'll hear athletes tell me, when I finish my classes at night, I always stay and hit the bag for an extra hour after class. I'm like, oh, okay. When you're hitting the bag, what are you working on? They're like, well, like I'm hitting the bag. I'm like, no. Like, what skill or what punch or what combination are you working on improving while you're hitting the bag? And they don't have an answer. And the reason that that's a problem is because if you're just throwing punches at a bag, you're not improving your ability to fight. Those punches need to mean something. You need to be working on a specific skill. And like, it can be simple. It can be like, okay, today I'm going to hit the bag for 20 minutes and I'm going to work on my 1-2. I'm going to work on, getting my head off the center line when I throw. Like, it doesn't have to be a complex combination or a crazy skill. It can be simple, but it needs to have a purpose. And see, right there, if you're one of those athletes that stays after practice for an hour and hits the bag, but you don't have any actual thought behind what you're doing while you're hitting the bag, we've eliminated the excuse, I don't have time for strength and conditioning. Because you can take away 2 of those bag sessions that you're doing, hit a lift twice a week, and see improvements in your sport. You get what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with classes. If you're working all day and then you're trying to hit 3 hours of jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or MMA or whatever it is, ask yourself at the end of those classes what you're actually getting out of them. Ask yourself what you're actually getting out of them. And the reason that's such an important question is because it's very easy to check the box and say, I showed up to class every single day this week. But if you're not able to actually pick oh, I made this, and this improvement within those classes, then you're wasting your time to a degree. Now, obviously, I'm not sitting here and saying that going to a Muay Thai class or a Jiu-Jitsu class is a waste of time. So don't twist the words. Boxing, whatever it might be. So don't twist the words. But if you can't point to an improvement you're making, then you're wasting your time. Because the goal of training is to not to check a box and say, I trained for 20 hours every week. The goal of training is to improve your abilities in the sport. So if you're going to 2 to 3 classes in a day and you can't look back at the end of the day and be like, I made an improvement here, then what are you doing? You're not making improvements. That means the 3-4 hours that you're spending training isn't doing anything good for you. You get what I'm saying? So this isn't to say that the classes aren't important. This isn't to say that skill work isn't important. They of course are. But what I'm saying is a very easy way to make time for the strength and conditioning work that you say you don't have time for is to cut one of those hours twice a week. And when you cut one of those hours twice a week, you're not really losing out on skill development. You're not really losing out on skill development because, plain and simple, your brain's not taking that much in within those times anyway. But on top of that as well, you're going to gain more because you're doing something different. You're helping yourself out in a different way, right? So continue to go to classes, continue to make improvements, but look at your schedule and be like, what hours of my training right now are wasted? What hours of my training right now are not really helping me move forward? And the second you find the answers to that, those are the times that you throw in those strength and conditioning sessions. Now, the other thing that I've got to bring up is why you need to make time for it. Because, I have a lot of other athletes that I talk to that also don't really understand that. Why do you need to make time for strength and conditioning? So the way I look at it, and the way that hopefully you look at it as well, is the skill work obviously allows you to win the fight. Without the skill work, you're not winning fights. I can be the greatest conditioned athlete in the world, but if I don't know how to throw a punch and I don't know how to defend myself, I'm going to get knocked out pretty quick, right? But proper strength and conditioning allows you to execute the fight execute the skill work at a higher pace within the fight for a longer duration, right? Because you're stronger, then your movements are taking less of your overall energy. And then you're also more resilient to injury, so you're able to absorb more impact without it doing damage to your body, which means you're able to train more, first off, but second off, you're able to do more within the fight without getting hurt. And then if you're more powerful, every punch you land does more damage. And if every punch you land does more damage, you need to land less punches for it to do enough damage for you to win the fight. And then if you're faster, you're connecting on more punches because your opponent's not seeing them coming. And if you're better conditioned, then you look in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds of your fights. And as a result, you're able to inflict more damage for the whole duration of the fight. And if you're able to do that, then you're not getting taken over in the later rounds. You're able to continue to push the pace. And as a result, you're going to win more fights, right? So why do you have to make room for strength and conditioning in your schedule? Because plain and simple, without strength and conditioning work, you're not able to actually execute your skills at the highest level. Now, that brings us to another point, which is how do we actually structure that strength and conditioning to give you the better results? Because a lot of people think about what we do, think about strength and conditioning training, and they basically think like military boot camp workouts, right? Like, do 100 reps of this and 50 reps of that and 100 reps of this and 50 more of that to just like physically exhaust the body to, whatever extent we can. And guys, that is not strength and conditioning. That's bullshit for the sake of bullshit. And I see so much of it in the industry, but that's a podcast for another day. But the idea here is that if you are actually training properly, then you are going to be able to build proper strength, build proper conditioning, build proper speed and power that's going to be able to translate to you doing more within the fight. It's not just exhausting yourself for the sake of exhausting yourself. And so if you're able to do that within your training, focusing on building those physical qualities 2 to 3 times a week within your training week, now you're going to be able to execute those skills at higher levels and in turn win more fights. So the main thing I want you guys to take this, number one, is all your current training schedule. If you're doing something like running for an hour every morning, ask yourself why. What are you getting out of that running? Oh, well, I'm getting really good cardio. Well, if you're running for an hour a day, it's probably at a pretty slow pace, right? And this, again, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it might be, it's probably not at a fight pace. Would that be fair to say? And then you're doing it every single day, right? So you're doing it a lot. And in your mind, you're getting cardio, right? You're getting that baseline. And to a degree, you're right. But what we can do is we can put different cardio sessions in place of those runs, as well as a lifting session in the same amount of time, 2 to 3 times a week, get you better results because you're going to build all the physical qualities instead of just the aerobic base. We can do it in less time and in turn see a better, stronger, faster, more explosive athlete come back into the fight. Because again, remember, the goal is not how many hours can I put in before I drop. The goal is to be the strongest, fastest, most explosive, and best conditioned athlete on the night that it matters. So better results in less time is what we should always be thinking about. Second, you want to make the time within your schedule for strength and conditioning because building these physical qualities allows you to execute your skills at a higher level for longer during the fight. I have a lot of people tell me things like when I talk about, improving power and speed. Oh, if you want to throw more powerful punches, you just need to throw more powerful punches. I mean, yeah, but also you're putting a massive limitation on how powerful you can be, right? Because if we put time into literally building your body's ability to be powerful, and then we put the same amount of time into the skills training, you're going to throw more powerful punches. Improving your technique, yes, will allow you to throw more power. But if you're not improving your ability to be powerful on top of actually improving the technique, then there's a massive limitation on how powerful you can be. You get what I'm saying? So we need to spend time on the physical qualities to allow you to execute the skills. So guys, plain and simple, that is it. That is all. I hope you guys got some value out of this. I hope you learned something. If you did, I would love to know what it is. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode. All right.